is that going to be actionable sexual harassment? Well, I'm going to say, yeah, that's a pretty clear case. We have the sexual connotation to all this. We have her rejecting it, and then we have an employment action that occurred after that. You know, a negative review. That's an employment action. That could be a separate cause of action. Poor evaluation. Denied a promotion. That could be another cause of action there, and then being terminated. All those three things could be actionable. So sometimes what happens is the employee, you know, you just get this person, she gets a bad evaluation, and she files a complaint to you, or she goes to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, and she's still employed by you, but she's got a lawsuit pending against you at the same time. Not a comfortable situation by any means. So let's change this a little bit. And in this, now she goes along with it. She says, yeah, I'll meet you at your apartment. And you know, whatever happens, happens. So she's acquiescent. Is that actionable sexual harassment? I said no, because we get back that first word of unwelcome. So it doesn't mean that people can never get together, but if she agrees to this, then, and they don't have to have a, you know, in writing, yes, I agree to go to your apartment or whatever, because it doesn't happen like that. But it's not actionable sexual harassment if she's going along with the program.
However, it breaks our company policy on dating assignments.
And that's, you'll see later on, is something I think is a great policy to have. And that is, they'll, you know, you don't date someone that is your subordinate. I mean, that's just a good, I think, a good policy to have. And now you, at the end of this, you can say, oh yeah, it probably makes sense to have a policy like that. But let's say in this case, she agrees in the beginning, but then she breaks off the relationship. Then she gets a poor evaluation and those kinds of things. That's going to be actionable, even though initially she agreed to it. By later on breaking off the relationship, and then she has, you know, the actionable things that occur with regard to work, poor evaluation, denied promotion, or termination of employment. So it doesn't matter that it started out as a consensual relationship. But this is where, quite frankly, these cases for me, I don't want to say I have fun at someone else's expense, but these cases are always fascinating for me because I always tell people as long as there's human nature, I have a job. And defending these cases becomes very interesting because you really get into a lot of background information about, you know, what was her motivation, what was his motivation, you know, what did the company do about it? Did the company, you know, bring them in and say, look, I know the two of you are dating, you're no longer going to be working for him, or he's no longer work for you, or whatever. And there are defenses that you can create that would make the case much easier to defend. And I think they're always fascinating cases. So what do you do about it? Well, you know, the first thing you do is investigate. Part of the investigation is documenting it. And I'll use that term many times today about documenting things, how important it is to document things. And one of the biggest reasons for why it's important to document is until you've gone through a case, you really don't realize how important it is. Because here's what's happened. Someone's going to file a claim with the Indiana Civil Rights Commission or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It just has a little background. You have to do that before, you can't just go directly to court. You have to go through this federal or state agency. Or in Marion County, we actually have a Marion County Human Relations Commission that we don't see very often. But if you guys do work in Evansville or Fort Wayne, they have the local agencies as well. And what will happen is they file a charge, and let's say they've been terminated at that point. They file a charge. Immediately, the lawyers come in and we start asking a bunch of questions. And one of the questions is, well, you know, when did you first know about this? Well, if you've got, I love opening a file, a personnel file, and Robbie can attest to this, and saying, you know, here's the first we learned of this, and we have a statement. Well, what if that supervisor is no longer with the company? Are we gonna track him or her down to find out, well, what do you remember about this situation? Or do we already have it in our file as to what was alleged in the beginning? People leave. You know, I hope that doesn't happen to you guys, but people go elsewhere. Or their memories fade, you know? Yeah, I sort of remember her saying something about the you know, her supervisor harassing her at work, but, you know, I didn't do anything about it, didn't think about it, didn't think it was going to be a big deal. So I didn't put anything, any documentation, we didn't put it in her file. Well, how can we prove she's gonna say definitely such and such happened on such and such date? And what's he gonna say? Yeah, I don't really remember, or not to be political at all here, but what you're seeing, I think, in the media more and more frequently now is just a flat denial. And so we saw it with the Supreme Court justice. When he was being interviewed by Congress or by the Senate for his confirmation. You know, we had two people who said something, you know, she said something happened, he said it didn't happen. Well, you've got, I'm gonna say it's a liar's contest. I'm not saying, again, nothing political, I'm not saying she was right, he was right, I'm not saying anything of that. But what we're seeing is just the defendant just flatly denying it never happened, it never happened, it never happened. Well, what if there is documentation? What if, you know, she is now coming up with a different story, but what was told to her supervisor early on was, you know, completely different than what she's saying now, and we've got documentation of that. Well, what's going to be more credible? A piece of paper that was written at the time when the allegation was first brought up, or a story that 3 years later comes out when she's in court and is making stuff. And as an attorney, I love to see that documentation in a file so that we can show this is what was said, this is what was done, those kinds of things. So it's just very, very important. But again, all comes back to that investigation. Yes.
Is it important, when possible, somebody complains and it goes to Robbie, to document it and actually have that person sign off on it saying, yes, that's what happened?
Right.
That's even
Yeah,
stronger.
that's absolutely, that's even stronger.
And one other thing, you talked about, one of the purposes for documentation is loss of memory.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people would think, well, you know, I can remember 2 months ago. How long do they have? Because you and I talked about that.
By the time
300?
Yeah, they have 360 days to file the charge. So a year after this occurred is the first you might have ever even heard of the
You
situation.
gotta remember, and then by the time
And
depositions.
then with
or anything
depositions,
else.
you're talking at least another year, so now we're looking 2 years. And by the time it gets to trial, you're talking 3 or 4 years, you know, ago. I mean, do you remember a conversation you had 4 years ago? Probably not. If there's documentation, oh yeah, I remember that conversation, and that's why it's just absolutely crucial to document things.
According to my wife, I don't even remember conversations we had 2 days ago.
Again, keep it confidential to the extent that you can, be consistent with that, and take that immediate and appropriate action. Now, one place where employers have gotten into some trouble